Even as the fireworks continue at the Parliament of India, yet another stoke of a splendid fire is underway, with the central government coming in to introduce a bill with regards to the appointments of the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners for, in fact, the Election Commission of India. Now, this bill, which will be introduced in the Rajya Sabha by Union Law Minister with independent charge, Mr. Arjun Ram Meghwal, seeks to amend and in fact negate a judgment of the Supreme Court, which had recently via a constitution bench judgment of 5 judges had set up a committee, in fact including the Prime Minister of India, the Leader of Opposition and in fact the Chief Justice of India, for appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners of India. In fact, what has also now come into light is that the fresh bill that brings about to change the composition of this particular committee does not include the Chief Justice of India now. Now, it will be replaced, the CJI would be now replaced by a union cabinet ministers, which would now make the committee of the parliament, the leader of opposition and a union cabinet minister being in charge of this particular committee, which would in fact be making appointments of the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners that are there at the Election Commission of India. Remember that when in April the Supreme Court had passed down this judgment, it had left the room open for the government to actually frame such a law, clearly saying that this judgment of the Supreme Court, this 5 judges bench judgment of the Supreme Court, is something that is an interregnum measure. It is an interim measure that is being given, and the Parliament is free to frame a law. And in fact, until a law is framed by the Parliament, the judgment would actually sustain. Now, this becomes a debate point as well within the politics, wherein it is being accused that the government wants to take everything under the control. But we also have to remember, when the Supreme Court had passed on this judgment, it had raised questions and in fact had stated very, very categorically that the independence of the Election Commission of India and the election commissioners, including the Chief Election Commissioner as well, is something that is very, very important for a democracy. It cannot be under the powers of the executive, is what the Supreme Court had said. But the Supreme Court in its judgment had itself said that this arrangement that the Supreme Court has now made is something that would be staying until a law is brought in the Parliament. So now many questions emerge out, whether this bill will be passed by both the houses and will become an act. Second, whether there will be a judicial challenge to this particular bill that is being brought in by, in fact, Mr. Arjun Ram Meghwal before the Rajya Sabha today, or in fact it will get a clean sheet and a clean sweep in the houses and then it will become the law of the land. So all of these questions would be answered in the next few days from now. But this has become another flashpoint of debate between the political parties, wherein various politicians have now accused the Bharatiya Janata Party-led central government of doing what they want to and to take executive control of everything that is possible. Now, whether the BJP will respond to it, what will the BJP be saying to it, is something that is there. But the legal question also emerges out, that whether this is something that has been correctly done, whether this is something that could be warranted. But we have to also understand that the Supreme Court, when it had given out this particular judgment, was very, very clear and categoric that, this is an interim arrangement and can only continue until the Parliament brings in the law. So if at all the Parliament passes this particular law, we might see it becoming an act. And though a judicial challenge can be there, but we'll have to see as to what degree and what part would be a challenge to this whole particular bill that is being brought in by Mr. Arjun Ram Meghwal today. So very, very clearly, we have seen that this is not the first time that in fact the Supreme Court's judgment has been negated. Very recently, with a thumping majority of 131 against 102 noes, the bill with regards to the transfer and services in the National Capital Territory of Delhi, that is the GNCTD, was also passed. We had seen how there were many oppositions to it when this had come with an ordinance, but now since it has become an act, it is very, very clear and categorical that the government has those numbers and the government got it passed by a thumping majority of 131 votes. Whether that would be the same case with regards to this particular bill as well, whether this bill will be passed in both the houses or not, whether there will be a legal challenge to all of this, is something that is a matter of time. All these questions would be answered in the next few days, and in fact a very, very important question, whether the Supreme Court would actually intervene into this particular case or not. I am Ananya Bhatnagar with video journalist Shiv for CNN News 18 from the National Capital.